This is the moment God finally strikes, the terrifying downfall every narcissist cannot escape. Welcome back. Today, we're stepping into a shadowed psychological battlefield, a place many survivors of narcissistic abuse know all too well. It's the silent question whispered after heartbreak, trauma, and confusion. Why do narcissists seem to walk away untouched? You watch them manipulate, deceive, and emotionally destroy. Yet somehow, they stand untouched, admired, and even celebrated by those who never witnessed their mask slip. Psychologists refer to this phenomenon as narcissistic immunity. Not a literal protection, but a psychological illusion created by charisma, manipulation, and expertly crafted projections. Yet no matter how powerful this illusion appears, both psychological research and spiritual teachings remind us, no one escapes truth forever. To understand why narcissists behave as though they are above accountability, we must explore the emptiness beneath their grandiosity. Clinical psychologist Dr. Ramani Durvasula explains that narcissists are not powered by genuine confidence, but by a fragile ego constantly fighting for validation. Their inflated persona functions as a psychological shield against unbearable internal shame. This inner war mirrors ancient spiritual narratives, particularly the biblical story of Queen Jezebel, whose seductive charm and strategic manipulation masked deep insecurity and hunger for control. She demanded not love, but worship. In psychological terms, she embodied pathological narcissism, a relentless pursuit of admiration to numb internal emptiness. Much like Jezebel, modern narcissists construct a false self, a grand, idealized version of themselves, and expect everyone around them to protect it. Psychologists call this narcissistic mirroring, meaning the narcissist sees others not as individuals, but as reflective surfaces designed to feed their superiority. This is why relationships with narcissists feel suffocating, confusing, and emotionally draining. You are not a partner, you are a psychological resource. And this dynamic stands in opposition to both emotional health and spiritual truth. While faith teaches humility and authenticity, narcissists enthrone themselves as gods of their own brittle kingdoms. But here's what most people overlook. Justice rarely arrives loudly. Just as therapeutic healing begins slowly with awareness and truth, spiritual justice also unfolds quietly. Psychologist and author Dr. M. Scott Peck wrote that evil takes root when someone refuses to acknowledge their wrongdoing. Narcissists repeatedly receive opportunities for introspection, through rejection, consequences, loss, or emotional numbness. But instead of changing, they double down, choosing control over vulnerability. Jezebel's downfall wasn't sudden. It was built brick by brick through denial, arrogance, and resistance to truth. A pattern mirrored in modern narcissistic collapse. When Elijah confronted Jezebel, her rage was not merely emotional. It was psychological warfare. Psychologists define narcissistic rage as the explosive reaction that emerges when a narcissist's self-image is threatened. Elijah didn't just challenge her authority. He confronted her illusion. And like many narcissists confronted with truth, she responded not with accountability, but with retaliation. Survivors of narcissistic abuse know this pattern well. The silent treatments, the smear campaigns, the gaslighting. In therapy, this dynamic plays out when narcissistic individuals are asked to examine their behavior. The request alone feels like annihilation. To them, accountability is not growth, it is humiliation. Yet the most powerful form of justice, both divine and psychological, is silence and detachment. When survivors finally stop explaining, defending, and reacting, they remove the narcissist's emotional fuel. Psychologists call this narcissistic starvation, the moment attention, validation, and emotional access disappear. And over time, something begins to shift. Not externally, but internally. The narcissist's mask begins to crack under the weight of their own lies, while the survivor begins regaining clarity, identity, and emotional grounding. Healing becomes possible not through revenge, but through separation, boundary setting, therapy, and spiritual renewal. Research shows that narcissists experience intense anxiety, insomnia, and emotional emptiness when admiration fades. Their punishment is internal, chronic dissatisfaction, fear of irrelevance, and the inability to maintain authentic relationships. Meanwhile, survivors who engage in trauma-informed therapy, inner healing, self-reflection, and faith-based restoration often emerge wiser, stronger, and deeply anchored in truth. What looks like the narcissist winning is often just the beginning of their psychological unraveling. So if you've ever felt like the narcissist in your life escaped justice, remember this: what looks like immunity is often a delay, not an exemption. Truth has a timeline, and it is always perfect. Both psychologists and theologians agree, reality cannot be outrun forever. Healing begins the moment you stop waiting for their downfall and start reclaiming your life. Waiting for change can feel like standing alone in a storm. The wind fierce, the silence deafening, the uncertainty unbearable. Survivors often hope the narcissist will finally understand the damage they've caused, repent, or soften. But instead, the storm grows darker. Psychologically, this stage is known as cognitive dissonance, a mental war between the version of them you hoped was real and the version that continues to cause harm. But remember, both faith and psychology whisper the same truth. Truth always rises, justice never sleeps, and silence is never the absence of movement. Healing is not waiting for them to fall, it is choosing to rise. But here's the part most survivors never expect. The moment the narcissist begins to unravel is also the moment the survivor finally begins to understand the truth. Not just intellectually, but emotionally, spiritually, and somatically. Trauma therapists like Dr. Bessel van der Kolk often say that the body keeps the score. The nervous system remembers the chaos long after the mind tries to forget. Many survivors report that when the narcissist starts losing control, whether socially, professionally, or emotionally, something inside them shifts, not into celebration, but into clarity. This is the moment when the mind finally aligns with reality. They were never powerful, you were simply conditioned to believe they were. And that conditioning runs deep. Throughout relationships with narcissists, whether romantic, parental, or spiritual, the victim internalizes fear, doubt, and dependency. Psychologists describe this as trauma bonding, a psychological tether created through cycles of harm and reward. It is the emotional equivalent of spiritual captivity. The narcissist becomes both the abuser and the only perceived source of relief. Survivors often ask themselves, why didn't I leave sooner? Why did I still care? Why did I hope they'd change? But trauma experts clarify, this wasn't weakness, it was survival. You adapted to their storm in order to maintain psychological safety. Your nervous system knew what your mind could not yet accept. Leaving would cause a collapse, not only for them but inside you. Yet as the narcissist weakens, something remarkable happens. The spell breaks. There comes a moment, sometimes quiet, sometimes explosive, when the survivor no longer reacts, no longer explains, no longer hopes, and no longer fears. Psychologists call this emotional shift the beginning of individuation, the reclaiming of selfhood from the psychological prison the narcissist constructed. Spiritually, this is the moment God steps into the story, not as a rescuer swooping in, but as a witness to your awakening. You begin to understand that silence is not surrender, it is sovereignty. Meanwhile, the narcissist senses this shift, and this triggers their deepest panic. When their manipulation no longer works, when their words no longer sink, when their control begins to slip, they face what psychologists call narcissistic collapse. This collapse isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like rage, sometimes like desperation, sometimes like sudden false humility. But underneath every reaction is the same core fear: losing the person who once fed their illusion of power. And this is where victims must be especially careful. During collapse, a narcissist may attempt what trauma experts call hoovering, a psychological tactic where the abuser tries to pull the victim back with promises, tears, blame-shifting, pity, or nostalgia. They may say things like, "Nobody else will love you like I do. We had something special. I've changed." But psychologists agree. This is not love, this is panic disguised as devotion. The narcissist does not miss you. They miss their access to your empathy, attention, and emotional fuel. And this is why boundaries become not just helpful, but sacred. As healing progresses, survivors learn that justice is not merely external punishment. It is internal realignment. The victim begins to rebuild their identity piece by piece, learning self-worth, assertiveness, emotional regulation, and silence without fear. Trauma therapists observe that healed survivors often become more grounded, discerning, and spiritually attuned. It is as if the suffering forged a deeper strength, the kind that cannot be manipulated again. And here is the most powerful truth. Healing doesn't just break the cycle, it exposes the pattern. Survivors begin to recognize red flags instantly. The love bombing, the entitlement, the subtle control, the entitlement to your emotional labor. What once confused them now reads like a warning label. Where there was fear, there is wisdom. Where there was attachment, there is clarity. Where there was devastation, there is identity. So yes, narcissists face consequences. Not always publicly, not always dramatically, but inevitably. Their life becomes a looping performance with a shrinking audience. Their relationships become transactional. Their nights become restless. And while they chase admiration like oxygen, survivors finally breathe without them. As you walk forward, remember, your healing is the justice. Your peace is the closure. Your growth is the testimony. And if these words met you in a place of confusion, heartbreak, or awakening, don't walk this path alone. There are others rebuilding, reclaiming, remembering who they are. So before you leave, do one thing, not for the algorithm, but for the next survivor still trapped in silence. Leave a comment, subscribe, give this a like, share it with someone who needs truth more than comfort. Because somewhere out there, someone still believes the narcissist is untouchable, and your healing might be the proof they need that freedom is possible.